Setting me up for a trap, the text that blew up Hollywood. This was never supposed to go public. A private text, a furious vent, one sentence that just detonated behind the scenes Hollywood. Setting me up for a trap. That's what Justin Baldoni wrote about Blake Lively during filming of It Ends With Us. And now the message is unsealed, public, and fueling one of the messiest celebrity legal battles in years. But here's the twist. According to sources close to Blake Lively, that text didn't start the problem. They say it came after she had already accused Baldoni of creating a hostile work environment. And suddenly, this isn't just drama, it's war. The text that was never meant to leak. On December 30th, 2023, Justin Baldoni texted his agent at William Morris Endeavor. Not PR, not damage control, just raw frustration. I had a really, really bad week. At the time, no one knew anything was wrong. Cameras were rolling, the movie looked fine from the outside. But behind the scenes, Baldoni was spiraling. He told his agent Blake Lively had reached out directly, suggesting a private meeting at her home. Soon after, he claimed disagreements over intimate scenes exploded, and that's where things turned nuclear. The body double bombshell. According to Baldoni, Blake Lively flat out refused to use a body double during sex scenes. That alone caused studio panic. Sony executives and producer Todd Black allegedly had to step in. But Baldoni says what happened next crossed a line. He claimed that while Blake refused a body double for herself, she pushed to use one instead of him. "That's just setting me up for a trap," he wrote. Now, important disclaimer, this is Baldoni's version of events, but emotionally, that line says everything. He felt targeted, cornered, played, and the tension didn't stop there. Creative control goes off the rails. Baldoni said Blake rejected his storyboards outright. Then came another demand, keeping both actors fully clothed during what Baldoni believed was a major romantic moment. "If you know the book, it's just ridiculous," he wrote. This wasn't just creative disagreement anymore. This was a power struggle. Baldoni wasn't just acting, he was directing, writing, shaping the story.
I'm a man, and this is a story that is told through the lens of a woman. And especially when it relates to intimacy scenes and to scenes where there is a mix of intimacy and violence, I wanted to make sure that those scenes had a female gaze. As much as I can try to see the world as a woman, I never will be able to. And then when it came to bringing on a stunt coordinator, it was important to me that it was a woman. We brought on Lauren Shaw, and we all worked together to figure out, well, how can the intimacy of this and the violence kind of work together? How can we make sure everyone feels safe? How can we rehearse and go through the process? Blake was very involved in that and had amazing ideas and was very hands-on with the choreography of it as well. Honestly, there were many instances on set where I just let the women figure it out, and I took a step back and kind of jumped in more as an actor in those scenes than even as a director.
And suddenly, in his eyes, that control was slipping away. The private meltdown. In the same text chain, Baldoni called the situation a gigantic cluster, censoring the language. He said he'd given Blake 95% of what she wants for peace, but he sounded done, emotionally drained, exhausted, burned out over the holidays. This wasn't meant for public consumption. It was a private meltdown, and if it had stayed private, none of this might have exploded. But just days later, everything changed. The all-hands meeting that changed everything. 5 days after that text, an emergency meeting happened. January 4th, 2024. Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, studio executives. The topic? A list of 17 protections Blake Lively demanded before filming resumed. Here's the key part TMZ-style headlines love. Those protections were already agreed to weeks earlier. This meeting wasn't about introducing rules, it was about enforcing them. And that's where Blake's camp flips the entire story. Blake Lively's side. This was retaliation. A source close to Blake says Baldoni's text wasn't fear, it was anger. They claim Blake had already detailed numerous examples of a hostile work environment involving Baldoni and producer Jamie Heath before the text was sent. According to that source, the message shows retaliatory frustration, not someone being set up. They point out Baldoni had publicly called the protections reasonable and essential, then privately resented them, including having to attend an all-hands meeting he'd already agreed to. Public calm, private rage. That contradiction is now front and center. Why the texts suddenly went public? So how did this private message blow up the internet? Because WME tried to keep it sealed. The agency argued the texts were private internal communications with no legal relevance. The court didn't fully agree. Once the message was unsealed, everything changed. A vent became evidence, a complaint became ammunition, and fans picked sides instantly. But the cracks started forming long before December. The on-set blow-up no one forgot. Court filings reference an alleged April 2023 confrontation. According to those documents, Ryan Reynolds confronted Baldoni over comments he believed amounted to fat-shaming Blake Lively. Witnesses reportedly included Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman. Huge names, huge moment. Still allegations, not proven facts, but they suggest this situation had been simmering for months. When Hollywood drama became a courtroom fight. By mid-2024, gloves were fully off. In a deposition, Baldoni's former agent used one explosive word to describe Blake Lively's behavior: extortion. Then came December 2024. Blake Lively sued Baldoni and his associates, accusing them of harassment and retaliation. She demanded $160 million. Baldoni denied everything and fired back with a $400 million countersuit. That countersuit? Dismissed. And now all eyes are on what happens next. Where this leaves everyone. The next hearing is set for January 22nd. Trial is scheduled for May 18th. 2 sides, 2 stories, 0 resolution. Was Baldoni creatively sabotaged, or was the text the reaction of someone angry about safety rules being enforced? That's what the court will decide. But one thing is already clear. A message meant to stay private just became Hollywood's loudest headline. And in this town, once the texts leak, there's no going back.